From the Workers Credit Union studio at Fitchburg Access Television, Michael Delamonica here with the Leominster School Committee Ward 3 debate. So just a reminder for the voters in Leominster, although we are at FATV studios, this will be broadcast on Leominster Access Television as well. Just a reminder for the voters how school committee is organized. Municipal elections happen in odd-numbered years. This November 2nd in 2021, we have municipal elections for the city of Leominster. The way Leominster is organized for its school committee is you have 5 wards, and each ward has a school committee representative, and you have 3 at-large seats up for election. And we've already featured the at-large debate. We've featured Ward 1. Wards 2, 4, and 5 are uncontested. So that gives us Ward 3, which is a contested race. We have 2 gentlemen here. Both of them, I can attest to this, have had a chance to speak to both of them in previous FATV, Flap and Focus episodes, both working hard out there on the campaign trail. And it's a pleasure to have both of them here. We have Ray German and we have Greg Thomas, who are the 2 candidates for the Ward 3 school committee seat. Now, both of them are first-timers running for political office. The incumbent school committee member in Ward 3, Isabella Lara, she is not running for re-election. So Mr. German and Mr. Thomas are vying for that seat. Gentlemen, welcome. So if you can each make an opening statement, a brief opening statement to just introduce yourselves to the voters. We'll start with Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Greg Thomas. I grew up in Ward 3. I moved back with my wife and several years ago into the same house that I grew up in, right on Leggett Hill. We love it here in Ward 3. We love it in Leominster. How I got involved and how I got interested in this position was back in June when the discussions were starting happening about whether we would be hybrid, whether we would be in person or remote, and the discussion around budgets. At the time, I am an IT manager at a local financial institution, and I had recently been a part of our return to office implementation. I had a lot of lessons learned. I felt like I could be an asset to the school district. I reached out to Paula and offered up our plan, what I had learned in our process, and tried to help any way that I could. As time went on, it grew more and more concerning as to how the decisions were being made across the district, and the feeling of that many of the decisions were politically driven. I felt like the students and the kids of the district, their voices weren't being heard, and I felt, looking out for my own children who are in the Fallbrook school system, I felt strongly that I needed to provide a voice to them and other kids in Ward 3. So that's how I got involved, and thank you.
Ray German.
Hi, my name is Ray German. I've lived in Leominster with my wife Ann for about 15 years. We like it here. We have 2 daughters in Fallbrook and now Samoset. We've just moved to middle school. About 5 years ago, I started attending school committee meetings. 6 years ago, I became an active participant in the Fallbrook PTO. I've been working with them since our child first hit there. I was just elected as the historian to the Fallbrook PTO. So I've been interested in all of this. I've been watching it, and for a while now, I've thought, I might be able to do this school committee job. It seems interesting. It seems like my skills would apply. And it seemed like this was a good year to try to run and bring what I can to the school committee.
Thank you. So first question. Because of the way the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has been structured since education reform in the early 90s, the role of a school committee can oftentimes be limited in terms of direct enforcement of policy. However, our local school committee is still a valuable shaper of policy within a school district, even if it's indirect. So name one policy that you believe that the Leominster School Committee has successfully promoted over the past term, and name one policy that you feel hasn't been promoted and needs to be. So we'll start with Mr. German.
So over the past term or so, it's been mostly reactionary to COVID. Prior to that, I think they've done a really good job of promoting the CTI programs in the few years leading up to the disaster of the past year. I think they've done a really good job of finding space for that and promoting it as a good path forward.
And in terms of an area that you feel that they need to improve on, or an area you'd like to see them focus on or do a better job this coming term? Yeah,
I would like to see them press for better, more clear communication from the school department and from the school committee itself. It's often difficult to find information as a parent. You tend to get the runaround. I'd like to see them attempt to make communication a little clearer.
And Greg Thomas.
So I think that one of the policies they did well was when we decided to actually make the jump to coming back to the classroom. I think the plan was very solid. I think that it was executed well, and I think it was everybody was moving in the same direction. In opposition of that, I don't think that in-school education was prioritized last year. There was mountains of evidence that supported that mask wearing protects children. There was mounting evidence that suggested that community transmission didn't change as a result of kids being in person. There was many peer-reviewed studies out there for that. So in that regard, I would like them to take a more proactive, science-based, data-driven approach to their decision-making. I do feel, for example, this school year, the Test and Stay program was announced on August 13th. It was by DESE. On August 19th, I made a post saying that this is great. We need to implement this as soon as possible because our priority needs to be having kids in the classroom. And sure enough, several weeks into the school year, we didn't implement the Test and Stay program, and children across the board were out of school 10 to 14 days, and which is just unacceptable after we've been through what the kids have been through and how far behind they've fallen. So, like I said, proactive, data-driven approach to decision-making, I think will go a long ways.
Not to high-five my opponent, but my own kids have missed about 2 weeks of school already because of being close contacts, or we traveled out of state. And I agree that it seems a little excessive.
All right. So largely you concur on that
on
that point.
Test and Stay being a good thing, definitely.
All right. Well, the next question may be a little bit anticlimactic then. So,
apologize.
So both Fitchburg and Leominster throughout the 2020 and 2021 school year were basically totally remote learning, little periods of hybrid and in-classroom learning, but some districts were totally hybrid from the start and not all remote learning. So do you agree with the city of Leominster's choice that previous school year? It was a very, very close vote in the school committee, and neither of you participated in that vote. So do you agree with that school committee decision last school year? If so, why? And if not, why? Start with Greg Thomas.
I guess it is anticlimactic. I gave I spilled the beans. Sure. So I mean, my personal opinion, my decision for my children, what I voted for was full in-person learning. I would have been, at the time, in full honesty, I would have been happy with hybrid. I think the evidence was there. The survey results that had been completed in June overwhelmingly said that both teachers and students wanted to be in at least a hybrid model. Many wanted to be in person. It was two-thirds of those surveyed said that they wanted to be in person, either hybrid or in-person model. So that is kind of where I came from. The decision making wasn't based on the feelings of the parents, the feelings of the teachers. It was based on something beyond that. So.
Now, you say data-driven, but now were there any communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that went full in-person to start the 2020-2021 school year?
There were. I don't have those off the top of my head, but I do remember looking at the data, and I can certainly find that information. But I can say with 100% certainty that there were at least several districts that
they were in the minority. But
yeah, they were certainly in the minority.
Yeah.
Vast majority were hybrid.
Okay. All right, Mr. German, same question.
So I would have voted to be hybrid as opposed to full remote. Personally, we had already decided that our children would be full remote because that was always given as an option. So given that our children seemed like the type of children who'd be okay with being full remote, they both had laptops already. We understand, we're good and computer literate, we can help them. We had decided that our children would be full remote, but we felt like it was almost because we had that privilege, we should remove our students from the school to give other kids a little bit more space in being hybrid. And there are plenty of children in the district who need to be in the schools, and I appreciate that. So I would have voted for hybrid.
Do you agree with Mr. Thomas that full in-person should have been looked at?
Not at that time, no. Now I would. Now we have data from the past year that show that full person. But at that point, I would have probably voted I would have said hybrid. The full person is ridiculous.
Based on what was out there?
At that time, yeah.
Okay. All right. And are you satisfied with the rollout this school year? I'll ask, we'll start with Mr. German, we'll go with Mr. Thomas. For this school year, you satisfied with the rollout? We at-large incumbents that were in here seem largely satisfied with the way the school district rolled things out for this in-person with some limitations type system. What's your feeling on it, Ray German?
I would certainly appreciate test and stay to have arrived earlier. My kids could have stayed in school. There doesn't seem to be any sort of remote support for the students when they're sent home due to a COVID issue, some close contact. They're basically handed a packet and sent home for 5 days. Go teach yourself. It would be nice if there were supports there for them. One person in the district they could zoom into if they have questions or anything. So I'm not perfectly satisfied, but I think they're doing a good job. I wouldn't blast them on the internet or anything.
Okay, Mr. Thomas.
So I think that that the rollout's been fairly good. I mean, there are certain things that I would like to have seen differently, similar to what New Hampshire has done with a kind of an approach that kind of looks at from a masking standpoint and looking at community transmission, in-school transmission, and isolating segments of the population to mask if need be, but doing it based on some type of matrix for decision making, which is what the New Hampshire governor and the Department of Education in New Hampshire advocated for as well. I'm with Ray in terms of they really kind of dropped the ball in terms of letting, providing support for children that had to quarantine. Something that I had advocated for on my Facebook page early in August was that, hey, how do we keep these kids engaged when they're out because of quarantine? One of the recommendations that I made was a conferencing solution that cost about $5,000 to $10,000 that could have been used by ESSER funds to support a mobile cart that can be moved around as needed for the classroom. And I even spoke with an administrator in the Marlborough Public Schools that said they used a similar solution last year for their students, and it worked great. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But overall, I would say that the teachers have done an amazing job, and keeping the schools open for sure.
Okay, thank you. So next question, if you could wish for one thing, any one thing to happen next school committee session, which thing is at the top of your wish list? Okay, start with Mr. Thomas.
Certainly, I would like to change how we look at masks as an important piece. Certainly, I would like to look at how we're dealing with these quarantining of students. And I would really, I was disappointed in the last meeting that when they went over the MCAS scores, there didn't seem to be a lot of solutions to the problem. It was clearly we were failing in terms of math in a very problematic way. And I didn't hear any real solutions or measurements of success or goals that they were trying to achieve in the school year, and that was very disappointing to me. So I would like to see some more measurements on how we're going to get from where we're at right now in math scores and how we're going to improve that across the rest of the school year, and how we're going to measure that improvement, because what you measure is what gets fixed.
Ray German.
Rather, jumping off of those MCAS results, they discussed at the school committee meeting how the MCAS is given in English only, and we have a large number of English language learners, and how that might affect our scores. You can't really do well on a test if you don't understand the language very well. And I think I would choose to wave my magic wand at getting more support for our English language learners. I think that's an area that we could really beef up.
Okay. Any follow-up with that question?
I think we did a good job covering it.
All right.
Yes, we're excellent. Thank you.
All right. Well, so this is a question that is just for the Leominster School Committee candidates, because Fitchburg historically does not seem to have this issue, unlike Fitchburg School Committee, which with the city council and the mayor, the school committee's been holding hands and singing songs around the campfire. Not so much in the Leominster School Committee with the mayor and the city council and the comptroller. There's been some acrimony there. And as the at-large candidates pointed out, it's been a little better in recent years, but still some debate and still some disagreement and some discord going on there. So how do you each believe you can contribute to a more harmonious and effective working relationship with the mayor of Leominster, who will continue to remain on the school committee? Ray German.
So at work, when I work with people, I tend to actually put more energy into the people I disagree with on topics to try to form, a bit of a dialogue with them, a relationship with them as human beings, so we can disagree maybe on an issue or a policy, but have it not be any sort of animosity between us. I don't have any history with the mayor of Leominster. He doesn't know who I am, as far as I know. So there's no bad blood between us. I have no reason to not work well with him.
So you feel that you could be a bridge to actually solving some of these disagreements?
I do feel like that would be a benefit over some former Ward 3 people.
Mr. Thomas.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so we have to recognize the fact that as a mayor, he has a vested interest in the school's success. It reflects on him. It reflects on the town. Tax dollars go up. All those things benefit the city. So we have to get past the fact that we don't always agree. We're all on the same team and we want the same thing. So we have to figure out how to make that work, right? So one of the things is that we have to understand from a city perspective what the challenges are, and just not realize there's not always a pile of money. And the biggest thing that I can say, and I did my research here, is I looked at the appropriations that a city similar to Leominster in size, Attleboro is almost exactly the same size population and almost the exact same median income. So there, the amount that the city appropriated there and the amount that we appropriate is about the same. So realizing that it's not always about hiding money. And then I think the other thing is that we have to recognize that we have to pat people on the back too, right? So when the city donates $3.5 million out of their funds to the school and the finance chair just kind of brushes it off or goes over it without acknowledging that, that doesn't build relationships. So I think, that doesn't give Mayor Mazzarella a free pass either. I think that the relationship has devolved because both sides are kind of trying to one-up one another. So I think we have to just revert and kind of make amends and build back.
Anything to add?
No, I agree with what
Okay.
Greg said.
Anything else?
No,
All
I'm
right.
good.
All right. Well, here you go. You're all getting along too well, so you asked for it. Let's talk about one of social media's favorite hashtags out there, sweeping the nation, the dreaded topic of critical race theory. It's something you hear about, local school districts, politicians. I'm for it, I'm against it. But people can't really describe in 2 or 3 sentences exactly what it is. When I say that term, what does critical race theory mean to you? Mr. Thomas.
I thought you were going to go with hashtag Let's Go Brandon, because that's another big one right now. But critical race theory, the simplest way in my mind to explain it is that it basically is the opposite of what Martin Luther King said, which was we judge people on the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. So it segregates groups of people based on just plainly the color of their skin.
Okay, but we had another candidate in here in a separate debate who defined it differently, and her definition was we have to recognize that different people and different cultures and different races and different ethnicities walked different walks of life. And what critical race theory really is recognizing those different walks of life. What would you say to that?
And I would say that I apologize, but that is not what the text and literature of people that have written books on critical race theory, the main tenets of it. I would say that what she's describing is good things, that we should celebrate where we've come from. We should recognize the mistakes that were made across history. But the things that made our country improve and better are those experiences. So, we've learned from them, we've grown from them. I would say that, the idea of systemic racism that exists in critical race theory is our children grow up in a world where they just, at school today, one of my daughters was sitting and reading a book with another child, and they all different skins, all different cultures, all different genders. They don't see the color of other kids' skin. They don't see what the past has brought to people. So it's important that we learn what happened, but it's important that they're not held responsible for the decisions and the mistakes that our great-grandfathers have made.
Mr. German, are you in agreement with this definition and some of these distinctions being drawn? What is your opinion on what the term means, and what would you like to add?
It's interesting that you framed it as my opinion on what the term means, because I don't actually know what the term means. I haven't researched what critical. I know it's an academic theory, and I know it's being used as a boogeyman at the moment in politics, as some sort of attack on America, because they're going to teach them critical race theory and they're going to hate America or something like that. And the best I can come up with for what I think it is when people actually try to apply it is rather like that other person said, acknowledging that the child who isn't white is going to, in modern day America, is going to live a very different life than the white child simply because of the color of their skin, that we haven't fixed those things yet. And looking back at our history and seeing how we got here, right? That's the best I can come up with, and I think teaching history as it actually was is probably a good thing. But I don't necessarily know what critical race theory is. I just know I'm supposed to be scared of it. That's what the media keeps telling me, that as a white man I should be terrified of it, but I don't know that I am. Media overblown?
I mean, I think there is plenty of it going on. I don't see it here in Leominster, and I'm grateful for that. I do see it in larger cities across the state, but I'm happy to say that I don't think our school committee, I don't think our superintendent supports it, and I think that we should continue to treat our differences as a plus and not something that divides us.
Supports it, but do you think that it's something that is not being accurately portrayed? So,
what is it?
Well, that's my question to you. So what is it?
What is critical race theory?
So Mr. Thomas says, what is it? So what do you think it is?
It's not. I don't know what it is, because it has an actual technical answer, and I don't know what it is. I can make an opinion about what I think it might be, okay, but what's the value in that?
All right. So what is it? What is what you think it might be?
I think it's about looking back at history, American history, not only through a white lens, and looking at it through the people we displaced when we Europeans came here. We displaced an entire continent of people We brought over people and enslaved them in order to do our work for us. And we don't teach these things. I sat through remote learning last year. My daughter was in 5th grade, and American history was Benjamin Franklin was literally Captain America, and mistakes were made in terms of slavery. That's how they're still teaching it. And I think it is about changing that.
So, what Mr. German's perspective on it, is that reasonable? Is that closer to what you like to see happen in Leominster? And is that what you mean by you say Leominster is on the right path with this sort of thing?
So one comment I've heard in previous debates here is a little bit concerning, right? Is that our children deserve the best teachers possible. No matter their race, color of the skin, gender, age, it doesn't matter. Whatever the best teacher is what the children of Leominster deserve. So I agree that ideally we bring in teachers that reflect, the children of the school district. But I think it's far more important to bring in the highest quality teachers over anything. And that is part of the concern that I hear in some of the discussions.
If I may, I disagree. It's getting good now. I think so.
Just in time for the debate to end.
I just looked while I was in the green room, and 32.7% of our students are identified as Hispanic on the school website. And I think it's very important for people to have people instructing them, people in positions of power, people to look up to who look like them and have experienced the things they have. And I think that's critically important.
All right. Well, there you go. Finally, we had some areas of
just masks. But it's critical race theory. Didn't see that coming. Thanks, Michael.
All right. So you each get a minute for a closing statement. You had 2 minutes closing statement, but the big bad moderator had to throw that in. So just look at the camera. You each have a minute for a closing statement. Make your case to the voters of Leominster. Look in the red
What do you want to
camera
start?
there. Into closing statement, so you go ahead, Ray.
Gotta pick somebody. Hi. For my closing statement, I'd just like to say my name is Ray German. Greg and I look a lot alike, so I'm Ray German. I'm excited about the idea of being able to be on the school committee and help out in ways I haven't been able to before. I think I would do a good job in representing the people of Ward 3. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the election turns out.
Greg Thomas.
Hi, everybody. Greg Thomas again. So what I want to just summarize here is my approach to this election and how I would manage my time as school committee. Our motto is kind of kids first, and what that means is that we use it as a lens to kind of make all of our decisions. If I'm part of the budgetary process, our budgetary is going to explain and it's going to align with the vision, strategy, and goals of the superintendent, which are intended to, drive student achievement. So, for example, with math, the goal there would be, if we're going to bring in additional teachers, we're going to bring in great math teachers. We're going to bring in trained tutors. We're going to drive the math scores way up, and then we're going to all share in that vision and strategy, and that's what's going to be communicated to the city when we do our budgets. We're not going to hide funds in different line items and make it impossible for the average citizen to understand how the budget is done. And we'll drive transparency, and we'll continue to drive achievement, and those are my main goals. And
Thank you, gentlemen. And so again, this is a ward race. Voters in Ward 3, which is the southern part of Leominster. You have a choice between two articulate candidates here. They've run a great race. They've run a race the way you're supposed to run it. But you do have a choice between two people who have never run for political office before. Read up on the positions, read up on their platforms and what they believe and their agreement and disagreement, and please just vote wisely, and most importantly, vote November 2nd. Thank you and take care. Good night.